Hi, my name is Kirk Anderson. I'm one of our fitness specialists here at Health East Ways to Wellness. And I'm going to bring you through a couple brief stretches. Our first one is just going to be from a seated position, our knee hugs. For a lot of our stretches, we can hold for 30 to 45 seconds and go through each stretch twice. For our first one, like I said, we're going to grab that knee and just bring our knee up to our chest with a gentle hug and squeeze. Trying to let that leg loosen and relax. Hold for that 30 before we switch on over to our other side and do the exact same thing. This stretch is going to be for a little bit of trunk and core rotation. Now it works best if we have our armrest here as well as a backrest so that I can lean to one side turning through. I want to just be twisting through my midsection, grabbing onto the far side hand rest and putting one hand on the back of our chair as we're slowly twisting through our midsection. We always want to go to slightly uncomfortable on these stretches. We never want to go to pain. Everything is always slow and controlled. There is no bouncing, there is no dynamic, quick movement, nice and slow. Coming back to our center, reaching across in the exact same way. Our near side hand goes to the back of that chair. As we rotate through, follow with our eyes. Feel that stretch through our torso, our trunk. Hold for our 30 and come on back to the front. We're going to follow that stretch up with a little bit of a calf stretch here. So we're going to be a little bit further, scoot to the front of your chair. We're going to straighten one leg out, reach down and grab that toe. Now as I grab that toe and sink down into the stretch, you're going to feel the lower portion of your leg, your lower leg muscles and calf start to stretch and lengthen, and we can do the same thing where we hold this stretch for our 30 to 45 seconds before relaxing, switching, and exchanging over onto our other side. In these next two stretches, going from the same position, we're going to lean all the way back into our chair again. We can do our tricep stretch. Now when we're doing our tricep stretch, we can come straight across our body with one hand, and I want to come up with my other arm and lock closer on this side of the elbow so that I can get a real good pull as I come across my body. You're going to feel that loosen a little through your shoulder, but you should also feel that lengthening through your tricep as you come across. Straight hands and angles as I pull over to the side. We can hold here for our 30 seconds before we relax. Shake that arm out, switch on over, coming straight across with the opposing arm, and holding there for our 30 seconds as well. Stretch is going to be our pistol stretch. Stretching out our lats here on our side. We can be all the way back in our chair as we come hands to the ceiling. We're going to lean to our side, loosen, lengthen, and reach. You're going to feel these trail side lats as they start to stretch. Holding here again as we exhale on our way down for 30 to 45 seconds. We can come on up, meet back in the center, and fall back over to our other side. If we lean all the way back and use that back rest, it'll kind of put me in a great spot where I can only stretch what I want, which is my trail side lats. Sitting all the way back in our chair, we can open up our chest and work some posture exercises as well. So for our first one, we're sitting strong and tall through our shoulders. I can bring my hands to the front, right through that sternal line, and as we slowly exhale, we bring those hands out to the side, opening our chest up, opening ourselves up to the room, staying back with great posture, feeling that string pulling right through the middle of my head, keeping me strong and tall. Coming back up to the front, gently opening back up again. Feel those shoulder blades as they come back and loosen, lengthen through our body. We can hold out there for that 15 to 20, a little shorter for this one, so it might be a little hard for our arms to hang out here as long. Coming back down to the front, we can go back down and finish with some of our shoulder rolls, going back for 1, 2, all the way back, and then relax as we let our shoulders fall. Feeling your great posture, feeling those shoulder muscles relaxing and keeping you from being pulled to the front. Let's stay back here. Our last exercise is going to be opening our hips up a little bit for the day. So we can scoot as far as we can to the front of that chair. We can still give ourselves a little help if we have our armrests as well. We're going to bring a knee up and rotate out through our hips. Bring a knee up and rotate out through our hips as far as this will let us. Now if we can, this works best from a standing position as we bring our knee up rotate on out, and relax at the bottom. All right, so we're getting into some of our exercises for the day. The first one is going to be a simple sit to stand. So we can start by taking a seat, good place to start. Nice and loose and relaxed. I want you to remember for all of our exercises, we want to have great posture, right? We're going to keep those shoulders back, keep our eyes up. My feet should be shoulder width apart, maybe a tiny bit wider. Our hands, depending on where you're most comfortable, can either be by our side. A lot of people prefer to have our hands up in almost like a praying motion, as it helps us a little bit with balance. So all we're going to do on this first one is a simple sit to stand. We can either hold or bear some weight if we need a little extra for the exercise, or if we're okay in the sit to stand by itself. We're going to push through those heels, drive through our heels as we stand all the way up through to the top. As we're sitting back, just know that the chair is behind you. You don't have to use it. But if we find ourselves going a little bit too far down, we can't come back up, the chair is there. So we're going to do the same thing in reverse. We're sitting on down until we either touch that chair, or if we need, we can take that seat, pushing all the way back up through to the top. We're going to start from that seated position again for our tricep extension, or just bearing a little bit of weight through our triceps and arms. Now you should never hear personal trainers give you advice of, I want you to lock that joint out, all right? We'd always want a tiny little bit of bend no matter where we are. So even if we say we want you to start with some straight arms, we mean straight arms with a tiny little bit of bend, all right? So we're gonna have our hands by our side on the chair behind us. We're gonna scoot to where our back end is almost off the chair. So when we do this, we can scoot off. Keeping my feet in a chair is gonna make it a little easier at that 90 degrees. To make it a little harder, I walk my feet all the way out. I'll bear a little bit more weight. So our option one is, once we scoot our back end off and we're bearing that weight through my hands and through my arms, to hold here for about 20 to 30 seconds, depending on how comfortable you are with it. Or if I scoot and change to the side, we're gonna bend just at my elbows as I come on down and extend up and through, pressing through my triceps, the back of my arms to the top. Want to keep our arms nice, toned, and tight. And for our strength, for upper body strength. So if we bend at that elbow and extend, push through to the top for our set of 10. Or one thing to avoid, making sure that if you feel as though you're rocking front to back, we're going to be using a lot of legs and a lot of shoulders on that. So we want to keep you back and try only to bend at our elbows. For our next exercise, we can sit all the way back for some of our leg extensions. Now, a couple different options for our leg extensions. We can hold on to our armrest to try to anchor our body back into our chair, as we can pick both of our legs up, flex to straight, feel that flexion on the top of our legs, and come back down. If we need a little extra, we can also come on up and flutter those legs through the top. Now, if we point our toes, you're going to get a little more flexion on the top of your legs. If we come back through this way, you can still flutter. It's not going to get quite the amount through your quads. For our balance exercise we'll be doing next, I want you right next to the chair or next to something along the lines of a counter or our bar that you can see behind us. So we can use our backrest of a chair as a little bit of a helper here. We're going to shift our weight onto one foot. It'll be a little easier to do it on the foot closest to the chair. And we can pick up and hold for our 6 seconds. When we're done, we'll switch to our other side and do the same thing. If it's a little too easy for you and you can do it without the assistance of the chair, we can also balance on that one foot, keep a tiny bend in our knee, our shoulders are back, our chest is up, everything is the same, but we're gonna come over at our chest and back up through to the top. Over the course of time, we can continue to work that so that as I come on over, I can come almost all the way to parallel with my body, back up and under, without setting that foot down. It can always, over the time, make it a little bit tougher. Start on a hard surface with shoes. You have some tools like bands we would utilize. Here's a couple different exercises that we can do with them. So for the first one, we can do it from a seated position. The second one, right afterwards, I'll show you do the same thing from a standing. So we can go front to back, front to back, front to back, try to keep that band from rolling up, and I'm gonna reach, stretch it out, and step through with our other foot. So for the first one, I'm gonna have it a little bit lower on my feet, and I can do this from a seated position. So I'm gonna start very close together, and I'm gonna push one foot out, pick it up, come on back. Push the other foot out, pick it up, come on back. Don't let them come all the way to where the slack is off. Keep a little tension on those feet the whole time as we reach out and stepping back in. Trying to control that as I pick it up and pick it down. It's hard on the way back to not let that want to pull me all the way in. Our second option is we can do the same thing from standing. So when we're standing up, we can sit back down into about a 1/4 squat, and we can go one direction out for 10 and then right back for 10 again with our side steps, forcing that big step out, coming back to shoulder width for our feet. Forcing that big step, coming back to our shoulder width. The same thing in reverse on our way back. If the more we sit back and sit down into this exercise, the more difficult it's going to be. We'll carry that weight through our glutes and through our hamstrings. Next exercise we're going to do is some band curls. Now, depending on height a little bit, it's going to depend on where we want to stand on our bands to use these. Your normal band, if we are right around that 5'8", right down the center, 5'8", 5'10", we don't want to be too wide with this stance or it's going to be way too difficult for us. If we're taller than 6 foot, one single foot is probably going to be enough for your exercise. But for right down the middle at around 5'8", shoulder width apart for those feet, we're going to come up with our elbows by our sides. We're going to keep them there as we come on up in our curl, and we can flutter right in the center of this curl. Holding in that midpoint, taking our tiny little flutters here. We can hold for 30 seconds, or we can go for our full curl, coming on up nice and slow and controlled for our set of 10. We can do the similar exercise from the ground if we want to stay from a seated position. We just have to stay back and start stepping on those bands a little bit more as we're coming up. It'll be a little easier though if we can do that from a standing. Since we have our bands, the next exercise we can do is going to be an overhead press. Now with our overhead press, it's a lot further away from the floor, so definitely go with 1 foot on this. I'm going to take those bands, I'm going to put them behind my arms. So you're going to feel them resting on the back of your arm. Whenever you're on 1 foot, a split stance, it works best to be on that back toe and to keep your shoulders and chest up, squeezing your glutes, your back end for a little bit of support to help protect your lower back. We want to start at that 90-degree angle. We don't want to come too much lower. We're resting here, hanging out up here as we press, reach, shrug above our head, slow and control back down to our 90, press, reach, and shrug. Trust that those weights are up there. Trust that our hands are up there. We don't need to look at them. If we start to look and arch our back, it puts a little bit more stress on our body. All right, moving on. Our last two exercises are going to be some front and lateral raises with some rear band pulls. Now these are great stabilizing exercises for your shoulder to make sure that we're built evenly and we're not pulling a little bit disproportionately. So with slightly heavier weights, you're thinking your fives with regard to this exercise, they would always come a little heavier to the front than we are to the sides, a little easier on our body. Our arms are going to be straight out in front of our shoulders, and we're going to slowly raise up to eye level or shoulder level, nice and slow and controlled on our way back down. Try to keep a little bit of tension on and coming right back up again. If we're bouncing or going a little too quick, you might feel some little bit of bruising on the top of your legs. That's your dead giveaway. Nice and slow and controlled. We're not trying to bounce them off the bottom. We're coming right back up to shoulder level. With our lateral weights, want them a little bit lighter. Our 2s or our 3s, these shouldn't be that heavy. We're just going for stability. Feet are still shoulder width apart, strong and tall through our chest, tiny bend in our knees, just like all of our exercises. We're going to keep those weights straight out to our sides. We're coming on up to level, parallel at the top of my shoulder, and slow and controlled back down. The more tired I get on these, you might start to feel yourself creeping to the front. Don't let them stay back as much as you can. Our last exercise, our rear band pulls, are going to utilize our band again. We want to be just a little bit wider than shoulder width. It could change a little depending on the band. We're going to be nice and slow and controlled as we come on out to that collarbone line. I'm keeping my arms straight and my wrists straight the whole time. As we come back to that collarbone, nice and slow and controlled back down. Keep a little bit of tension. We don't want to see that band start to sag. Our dead giveaway if we're moving too quick is these handles. If they start jumping all over the place on me, I'm not controlled enough. They should be smooth and hanging right below our hands. Nice and slow and controlled as we come on back and to the front. You should feel this very high on our back or low on those shoulders in the back of our arms. We've worked the front, the side, and the rear, making sure that everything is nice and even and equal. All right.